Okay, here's the thing. I'm going to go through. I actually attempted to do something today that I have not done before, so that's a milestone in itself. I wanted to start off with a video, specifically Brian Tracy. I've been studying Brian Tracy for the better part of probably 30 years. And if you get the opportunity to learn what this guy's story is, this guy dropped out of high school. Okay, so essentially, this is a person who dropped out of high school and then became insanely successful in like 22 different industries. So not like he just got really good in one field. He succeeded in 22 different industries, but he made a distinction when he was young. And you got to understand where this guy came from. When he did not graduate high school, he was working the crappiest jobs that existed. Didn't matter what it was. It could be farm work, it could be lumber work, it could be working on a Norwegian freighter in the North Atlantic. I mean, this guy was literally at the bottom of the food chain. And somewhere along the way, he ended up making a distinction. He wanted to know, why is it that some people were successful and others were not? So this is what I really want you to pay attention to, because what I'm going to go through today is I'm going to essentially have one, two, three, four, five, six. I'm about 6 bullet points that I want to talk about. Okay. And that's it. So if you have the opportunity, if you're not driving a car, take notes on this, because these are critical. So again, what I just mentioned about Brian Tracy is the fact that he made a distinction that there were other people who had achieved way more success than other people have. And we've heard of the Pareto principle. Came up to the conclusion that 80% of the people get 20% of the results, while 20% of the people get 80% of the results. So that's very important to understand, because I believe firmly with every fiber of my being that everybody wants to succeed spiritually, mentally, physically, financially. I mean, why wouldn't you? We have resources today that we didn't have 100 years ago, let alone 30 years ago, let alone 1,000 years ago. Okay, we have the tools at our fingertips, and especially with you really looking into the Forex market, or just the idea that whether you realize it or not, we can accomplish in a very condensed time frame. I believe within 18 to 21 months, anybody can be financially free for the rest of their life. And we know that most people will look at stuff and say, well, I can't do that. There's nothing more powerful than a made-up mind. I believe with every fiber of my being, the number one component that is required to succeed in trading or in anything in life isn't intelligence. It isn't some massive talent or gift or some skill set that where you're just like a prodigy, you got to figure it out. It is merely self-discipline. That's it. You take any single person who creates self-discipline, and the self-disciplined person will actually outachieve everybody else. It is what I call, that's one of my bullet points. It's called the separator. Okay. If you want to know what separates the people that have and the people that have not, it is self-discipline. Okay. But here's the real takeaway from this. Every single person has 24 hours a day. You have 1,440 minutes. And once they're gone, you never, ever get them back. 24 hours every single day. But this is a point that I wanted to bring up at the end. I'm going to bring it up now. And hopefully I remember to bring it up at the end. I believe the biggest way that you can help yourself is acknowledge the fact that tomorrow does not exist. I always say it to myself in Spanish. It's my mantra. Mañana no existe. So mañana no existe. So that's just my little mantra, because then what happens is it eliminates our tendency to lie to ourselves of saying, well, I'll just do that tomorrow. Well, you have to understand the fact that it never is tomorrow. It's always today. Today is all you ever have. And you either do it or you don't. But here's the takeaway out of this, okay, is there are, and I've been reminded of this recently, okay, there's people that just achieve these great results. And I believe what I would like you to do, and no matter who this is, I want you to think about a time where you were motivated. Okay, maybe you ask yourself the question, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? What would you do if success was guaranteed? Because the greatest obstacle to success in adult life is fear of failure. So what would you do if success was guaranteed? It's about goal setting. It's about literally creating goals that should be rewritten every single day. Okay, it's the philosophy of working on yourself before you work for anyone else. It's a philosophy of working harder on yourself than you work for any job. Okay, that is the key to ultimately even happiness in life. So the reality is that ultimately, just, and again, this is something you really, really want to be clear with, and this is a takeaway that I really want people to understand, is Everybody has a time where we were motivated. I'll give you the obvious example. Somebody's younger, they watch Top Gun, they want to become a pilot. Somebody's younger, they watch Rocky. Again, I'm aging myself because I'm old. And all of a sudden they want to hit the gym. I remember Jean-Claude Van Damme back in some movies he did, and the dude was ripped. I mean, he could do the splits on a couple chairs, and that inspired, that motivated, motivation and inspiration. But here's the takeaway. This is the key distinction, that for my time to be worth it here and for this to be actually of value to you, you have to make the distinction that self-discipline is more important than motivation. Okay, because motivation only lasts you so long. The way that I was able to really accomplish a lot of the goals that I accomplished in life was because I would create a system of self-discipline, to where essentially I keep track of, for example, if my goal is to increase a marathon time, I would basically focus on increasing it to a certain speed. Like if I wanted to run a 4-hour marathon, I would just go 7 miles an hour, simple math. And then, but I wouldn't just do that, because that's how you burn out. That's how you hurt yourself. Essentially, I would do it for 1 minute. And then now the next goal would be improving that. So whether it's 2 minutes or 3 minutes, but you'll have to understand incrementally, if you improve on anything, it's the whole idea that whatever you persist in doing gets easier, not that the nature of the task has changed, but your ability to do has increased. Repetition is the mother of skill. If I had $1 for every single person that told me they want to learn how to speak a foreign language, and it's not rocket science, it's ultimately a matter of fact committing time. If you decide, there's nothing more powerful than a made-up mind. The idea that clarity is power. I heard a quote from Brian Tracy years ago. He said 99% is a bitch, 100% is a breeze. So for example, if I wanted to drop to a specific body weight, and because there was a time where my waistline was 36 inches, I wanted to get it down to where it should be, which turned out to be 28 inches. And I just eliminated flour and sugar. That was it. I just eliminated flour and sugar. In a matter of 6 months, my waistline went from 36 inches to 28 inches. But the point is this: clarity is power. 99% is a bitch, 100% is a breeze, because I didn't have to decide, or justify, I'm going to have this or I'm going to eat that. No, if it had flour and sugar, I just didn't eat it. But here's the result: is a sacrifice is defined as giving up something of lower value for something of higher value. You have to make that key distinction. You're giving up something of lower value for something of higher value, because as a result, my energy went through the roof. So here I was in my 30s, and I was able to have energy like more than I've ever had in my life. And confidence and self-esteem, all these things are impacted by this. But again, the key takeaway that I really want you to understand, and I challenge you to write this one down. Okay, you should write this down daily. You should basically write down self-discipline better than motivation. Motivation is powerful. It will serve you, but self-discipline is what keeps you going day in, day out, day in, day out. Okay. And you have to remind yourself, I want you to write down these little nuggets. Okay. I want you to write them down on a daily basis. You have to write down self-discipline. It separates. It's a separator. Okay, because then you realize you're associating the end result with what it is that you're doing. I learned from Zig Ziglar many years ago. He was talking about how he was overweight, and here he was a speaker, motivational speaker, and he would go on tour, and then he started running because he realized he actually wrote a book, and it claimed what weight he was that he wasn't yet. So he said, before this book is published, I have to be at this weight. If not, that makes a liar out of me. So he would run to the mailbox, and then he'd run to the next mailbox, and then run to the next mailbox. And all of a sudden, there was a time where I think he was in Portland or somewhere in Oregon. At least that's how I remember the story. And he was running along, and all of a sudden it dawned on him. It became very, very clear that he always associated running, exercising with paying the price. You got to pay the price. You got to pay the price to get the success. And that's the day that he realized that, no, he wasn't paying the price. He was enjoying the benefit, because he was running along effortlessly. He was breathing easily. He felt better than he felt in his life. And he realized he had it backwards. He had it completely reversed. He was only enjoying the benefit of exercise. He was enjoying the benefit of eating cleaner. He was enjoying the benefit of basically having that self-discipline. And there's called transformational vocabulary. We end up associating stuff. We think that self-discipline is us paying the price. Okay, so if I discipline myself to start off my day listening to an audio program like Brian Tracy, like Zig Ziglar, like Maxwell Marx and Psycho-Cybernetics, like Napoleon Hill, I could go on and on and on and on. But the greatest law in life is you become the people you associate with and the books that you read, and you don't know what you don't know. I'm currently reading Blackheart. What is it? Red Face Black Heart, something like that. I don't know, but it's like the current modern day Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And I'm only about 40, 50, 60 pages into it, something like that. I read 10 pages a day, but I'm also reading another book at the same time. So I'm juggling between two books, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. But either way, this book is absolutely priceless. But if you cannot put this in your head in terms of constantly feeding with knowledge and ideas and distinctions, and then because the way that you succeed anything in life is you model success. You find the people who have already achieved success and you learn from them. You get those distinctions. So again, the number one bullet point that I want you to write down is success, or excuse me, self-discipline beats motivation. Okay. Anybody can get motivated, but nobody can stay motivated. I promise you that. It takes the discipline that you come in and out of. It's kind of like bathing. Okay. You don't just bathe once and then you're basically clean for the rest of your life. It doesn't work that way. Motivation is the same way. So write down that self-discipline beats motivation, and self-discipline separates. It's the great separator. That always motivates the heck out of me, because the fact that I realize if you do what everybody else does, you are destined to get what everybody else gets. And sometimes this overpowers me. There's times where I just crave some junk, but then I'm on autopilot. I have zero desire. I'm just like, no, I really don't want it. I actually genuinely, sincerely don't want it. And then I'm eating almonds or eating some type of trail mix or protein drink. You get the idea. But the point is, you're literally reprogramming yourself, and the results, basically, you create your own destiny with that. So I want you to remember sacrifice. Again, I'm giving you things that you could write down daily. These are things that I write down. There's a quote that gets written down by me every single day, and I mentioned it maybe a month or 2 months ago. It talks about the ability to enjoy life every day is the highest quality you can have. That gets rewritten every single day. It gets rewritten because we have to be reminded lest we forget. So it just gets rewritten. It only takes like literally 7 seconds. So that's all that's my tip for you today, is to have the discipline, to have the self-discipline to rewrite these things, whether it's on a Post-it note, stick it on your fridge. I don't care, but rewrite it every day, because what goes through you sticks to you. So define sacrifice. Okay. Sacrifice is giving up something of lower value for something of higher value. Enjoy the benefit versus pay the price. That is one that you want to write down. You want to write down enjoy the benefit versus pay the price. Because I did go to the gym today and I saw where somebody had recommended doing a 10-degree incline for 30 minutes, getting your heart rate up to about 120, do that like 3 times a week. And it's like, when I do that, I feel very, very, very good. And then I can break into running after that. But the point is having that balance and enjoying the benefit and getting to do these things, because ultimately it's about working on yourself before you work for somebody else. That's a good habit to have. And then write down tomorrow does not exist. This should be rewritten every day. If you were able to go through my journal through the past, you're going to see day after day after day, I write this thing down. I write down tomorrow does not exist. And then I'm literally doing the important versus the urgent. I'm doing first things first. And this is the stuff that's taught by Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You are literally doing, and the crazy thing is, if you did this, you would find out that you would have an incredible amount of time left at the end of the day. And then you can do more if you want. So it's habit for me just to pick up a book and then just read like 10 pages. Or sometimes I'll just read 2 because I've already passed the 10, or then it becomes 3, then it becomes 30, whatever. But the point is, I'm enjoying the process. I'm enjoying the benefit versus paying the price. The reality is this, is time is going to pass anyway. The time will pass anyway. See, because here's the reality, is if you look into the future, time seems to go incredibly slow. If you look backwards, just imagine if you went 21 months backwards and a person only started off with like $100 and they could somehow manage to self-discipline to get, say, just 5% per day growth. That account would be like $10 million today. If they could just basically hit their target and stop trading. Don't overtrade, don't over leverage, use proper risk management. But the point is that requires self-discipline. Is there anyone that could do it? Absolutely. Do most people do it? No. Okay, so that's the difference, is ultimately, but now you look forward, because if you look backwards, time flies. 21 months went by like nothing. If you look into the future, take your age, add 21 months, you still have the rest of your life to go and say, okay, I'm going to go to Venice and travel the Grand Canal, or I'm going to go to Cabo, or I'm going to go to Rome, or go to Paris. Just avoid Russia right now. But in all seriousness, because That's been on my list for a long, long time of places that I want to go. My family comes from the Ukraine. So, I mean, literally 100% of my mom's side is all Ukraine. But the reality is that times change. I remember a time where it was safe to go to Egypt, and then all of a sudden it changed and it wasn't safe to go to Egypt. Then it was safe to go to Egypt again. It was a time when it was no big deal to go to Acapulco. It was not a big deal. Now people even from Mexico say, don't go to Acapulco, okay? Because there's cartels that are battling out in different places that you don't want to go to anymore. Even the State Department issues alerts. The reality is this, remember this, nothing is permanent in life. Nothing is permanent in life. Don't ever forget that. And that's one worth writing down. Nothing is permanent in life. So here's my closing thought that I'm going to leave you with, okay? Because I love keeping these things shorter. I don't want them going any longer than they have to go. And you have to understand and accept the fact that you have the potential. You have more potential than you could ever use in 100 lifetimes. I want you to comprehend that and just really, really digest that. You have more potential than you can ever use in 100 lifetimes. So why is it people don't even tap into a fraction of it? Because they're lacking what? They're lacking self-discipline. But we still have 1,440 minutes every day that once they're gone, you're never going to get them back. You could take 8 hours a day, 7 days a week and work for somebody else. You still have another 16 hours a day where you're working on you, which is including rest, obviously, too. So you're resting. But the point is, you're literally just taking life one day at a time. I love taking life 1 hour at a time. Okay, that's it. Just take life 1 hour at a time. Ask yourself the question, if I could do one thing, what would I do? If I could do one thing, what would I do? So those are your bullet points you want to write down. I would suggest revisiting these things daily. And habits like this change lives. It ultimately does. You really have no clue. That has been one of my most motivational thought processes I've had for decades, is the fact that you have way more potential than you can even comprehend. I've heard it said before, and I've been reminded of it recently. You have more potential than you can utilize in 100 lifetimes. But listen, yesterday's gone. Tomorrow is promised to nobody. So ultimately, in the end, it just boils down to, what are you doing today? It's the whole saying that your actions speak so loud, I can't hear words you're saying. But if you break it down, you break it down to baby steps. That's basically it. If any single person took 10% of what they made every single day, every day, okay, not monthly, not weekly, not just daily, take 10%. If a person makes $100 in a day, $10 is paying yourself first. This is interesting because most people say, well, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start trading in the summer. I'm going to start in the fall. What if a person just took 10% of what they made and then just keep feeding it into a Cash App account? Okay, once it hits at least 50 bucks, then you have enough to throw into a trading account. You get the idea. 10% a day, you're making your money work for you. That has been taught for 2,000 years. That's all. But now we have a way to make it work for ourselves and where we can actually control it. So there's not a single person that can't have that kind of discipline of just taking 10% of what they make per day, take it one day at a time, because today is all you ever have. And literally internalize that mindset. With that being said, I'm going to close on that thought. But does anybody have any questions or thoughts? I'm not expecting it, but if anybody has any thoughts or questions, now would be the time to throw it out in the chat. Unless you're driving, then don't throw it into the chat. It's on the top of the chat. The YouTube channel's on the top of the chat. Greg posted it. So if you scroll up in the chat before I end this, you'll actually see a link. Thanks, Greg, for doing that, by the way. Okay, it's the YouTube page. It's up there. So usually it takes me a little bit. It'll take me sometimes up to a half hour after this is over before I can post it. So they're sometimes running a little bit behind. But anyways, but either way, that's on there. And I know I've actually studied 6 languages. That's a good question. And the cool thing is, think about this for a second. If you can, hey, Greg, can you post that again if you're still up here? I think you are, because he said he joined. There you go. Thanks, Greg. Anyways, but yeah, languages are fascinating because that's one of the things that if I could take a pill that just all of a sudden made you speak multiple languages, Spanish would be my #1 recommendation, because Spanish is the easiest language to know. And the cool part is, if you learn Spanish, you can, and if you study daily, day in, day out, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't even think I'm from Wisconsin, because when I basically meet some people, and if I find out they're from Venezuela or Mexico City or Ecuador or somewhere in Central America, I can literally just, I don't even speak English. I just start talking Spanish to them. And then they ask me where I'm from. And then I'm like, here. And they're like, bullshit, you're not from here. Pardon my expression, but that's basically what I hear. It's kind of fun. And I've even dabbled a little bit in Ukrainian. as well as Portuguese, which is a little more difficult, Italian. And one of the best ones is that as far as any language that I am studying, I try to learn the words thank you first. Or like in French, I try to focus on, okay, I don't speak French that well. Speak slowly, please. Je ne sais pas parler le français, parlez-moi s'il vous plaît. And you start to learn that, and you can really connect with people when you travel, which is a lot of fun. And here's the other issue that I think hasn't been addressed, or it's a good reminder. Alzheimer's runs really strong on my father's side of the family. The number one, according to Harvard Medical School and many other sources, the number one way to prevent Alzheimer's, legitimately prevent Alzheimer's, is learning a foreign language. Imagine getting to the end of your life and all of a sudden spending 18 years in a nursing home, not knowing anybody. And there's byproducts of that. People that get Alzheimer's, if it's very serious, they'll become physically violent, first verbally violent, and then physically violent. And, so I know personally in my family stuff that's happened to people, and then they spend 18 years because they're so physically healthy in a nursing home, but mentally the lights are on, but nobody's home. So I think languages should be mandatory for everybody. That's what's cool about people that come from Europe. They speak like 5 or 6 languages. So, and there's kids that can learn it, but it's just a matter of ultimately, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? So that's a very good question. I appreciate everybody else's time. Anybody have any last thoughts they want to add on to this? If not, I'm going to shut it down. I appreciate y'all being here, especially for a Wednesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not seeing anything else. Thanks again, Greg, for posting that stuff, as well as Nicole. It's like Nicole updated that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys all in about a week. Thank you.